Hi and welcome to this video lesson. One of the biggest downsides to only practicing with YouTube, books, magazines or DVDs and without a guitar teacher is that there's no one observing your playing and giving you constant feedback or corrections. The guitar offers us more ways to shape our notes than many other instruments. Ideally, this means we can express ourselves in a deeply personal way. But if no one shows us the finer points of playing, we also have many more ways to sound bad than many other instrumentalists. In this video, I want to give you a very detailed guide to the topics that are almost never discussed in most video lessons or guitar books. Some of these points aren't even talked about by guitar teachers. I've taught a lot of students who practiced elsewhere before who had never heard of some of the things that I'll show you in this video. As always, there's also a detailed step-by-step guide available for free. Just click the link in the video description or in the first pinned comment. You can print this guide or keep it on your smartphone or tablet as a checklist for each practice session to quickly turn the most helpful tips into new habits. I'll start with the most basic tips for beginners and gradually work my way up to things that will give even advanced players new ideas for refining their technique and approach. So make sure to also use the video's chapters down here to quickly jump to the lesson that fits your current level. Tip number 1. This tip is especially important if you want to improve your chord play. What I often see in beginners is that some notes or even entire chords are played with stretched or flat fingers like this. Some do this because they feel like they have more power this way, but when you hold your fingers like this, you end up pressing down with too much flesh, unintentionally pulling on some strings and muting or blocking others. As a result, some notes of a chord won't sound clearly, something that often goes unnoticed in the beginning. But once you start picking individual notes of a chord, the disadvantages of sloppy fretting become obvious. The solution: learn to play every chord with slightly curved fingers and as little flesh on the strings as possible. Whether you play nylon, steel string acoustic or electric guitar, only optimal fretting technique will give you fast and consistent progress. Tip number 2. If some notes still don't ring out cleanly, even with correct fretting position, try making what I call micro adjustments to the chord shape. I came up with this term to show my students that it often takes time for your hands to find the perfect shape for certain chords. If you ignore these small details, maybe because you think it'll fix itself eventually, or you rush through songs and exercises out of impatience, or perhaps you don't even notice the issues, they'll become harder to fix later and more mistakes will pile up. Sometimes it can take weeks until your fingers consistently remember the proper shape. But if you make micro adjustments a habit, your finger dexterity will improve dramatically, and even the most complex chords, leads and solo techniques will become much easier to master. Tip number 3. This tip is key when it comes to chord changes. It's very important to lift your fingers on the last beat or the last strum before the chord change in order to play a clean and well-sounding transition. Without this technique, your pick may constantly slip or even fall out of your hand because your hands aren't working in sync. Your strumming hand needs to feel when your fretting hand is preparing for a change. Even if you can fret a chord with all fingers at once, you'll never be fast enough for quicker 8th or 16th note rhythms unless you lift your fingers briefly in between. Here's a small exercise. Practice switching between a few chords this way. No metronome for now, but count steadily. So you just play an 8th note based rhythm and go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Maybe pick a chord progression from a song that you already know, so you can improve on things that you can already play to a certain degree. Here's me changing back and forth between G and C. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. You can also practice just the final accents before a chord change, so you go 4 and 1. And then practice a lot of chord changes. 4 and 1, 4 and 1, 4 1, and so on and so forth. Also note that when switching between chords that share one or more notes, you don't lift those fingers. A good pair of chords to practice would be A minor to C major, or G to D and back. I go into this in much more depth in my rhythm guitar video, check it out here, it's linked above. And I promise your playing will sound much better once you practice this regularly while also deepening your rhythm knowledge. Feel free to use my rhythm guitar playlist as well, which is now also linked above. Tip number 4. Once you start picking chords with a guitar pick, you may run into some common mistakes, or maybe you already have. One thing I see a lot is what I call quote-unquote chopping motions while picking. These are far too exaggerated and make it hard to play faster patterns smoothly and with good tone. Try to use more of a gliding motion instead, but don't overdo it either, otherwise you'll end up sweep or rate picking unintentionally. The trick is to find a good balance between gliding and chopping, so that the technique feels and sounds controlled and natural. Again, rhythm knowledge is key to developing speed and precision as well. Tip number 5. This tip assumes you already understand rhythm to some extent. Unlike finger picking, where each finger only moves in one direction, picking with a plectrum gives us two motion options: downstrokes and upstrokes. If you'd like a dedicated video on this topic, please let me know in the comments. For now, just focus on these two techniques: economy picking and alternate picking. Use economy picking for regular picking patterns like this one. When you're picking a chord from the bottom up, use only downstrokes. If you're going from top to bottom, use only upstrokes. This makes your movements very efficient, hence the name economy picking, and improves your technique and speed. For irregular patterns like this one, use alternate picking to stay clean and fast. Being aware of which technique to use in the moment also comes from a solid rhythm foundation. So as you can see, rhythm is the common denominator for most playing techniques. Tip number 6. Now a common and tricky issue, one that's hard to fix even with a guitar teacher: bar chords that just won't sound right. Since every hand is slightly different anatomically, small problems like your G or B string not sounding can be hard to explain or solve. But here are some tips to help you play bar chords cleanly. First, don't place your index finger completely straight. It should always be slightly curved, because you can apply more pressure with the edge of the finger than with the flat underside. What helped me personally was practicing just the bar, fretting all 6 strings with only my index finger, with no help from the others. Then gradually add the other fingers and make the same micro adjustments as with open chords until everything rings out cleanly. Another good trick for bar chords with the root on the A string is to bar only up to the A string and mute the low E string with your fingertip. This makes you more aware of where your root note is and ensures you don't actually hit the low E string when you strum. Tip number 7. Let's talk lead and solo guitar. One thing I notice in many players is that they fret notes with too much flesh and flat fingers here as well. This leads to poor tone and makes it hard to build speed and precision. To fix this, try using a simple chromatic exercise or a scale shape. Use either the complete minor scale or the minor pentatonic. To train your fingers to stay curved, just like with chords. Tip number 8. When playing scales or exercises, there are several other bad habits you can now work on at the same time. There are many options about what's quote-unquote correct here. Some very successful players like Zakk Wylde or Marty Friedman have unusual pick grips or arm angles, but they started very young and spent years perfecting their approach. If you're older or simply want to get better faster, it's safer to stick with some tried and true basics. Your wrist and forearm should be relaxed, straight, and parallel to the guitar body to avoid tension. This makes high-speed playing easier. When changing strings, let your forearm move slightly with your picking motion. Don't do this, because if your wrist bends inward, outward, or down too much, it creates tension and slows you down. Also keep your palm close to the body and strings so you can quickly switch between regular and muted strokes. Tip number 9. Make it a habit to play with constant alternate picking without having to think too much about it. Of course, in slower riffs or special cases, you might use all down or all up strokes. But in general, alternate picking is essential for clean and fast playing. Use it while practicing scales or chromatic exercises, they're perfect for this. Tip number 10. Lastly, if you want your runs to sound smooth and connected, your hands must be well synchronized. If you pick too early or fret too late, you'll get a staccato effect, making your runs sound choppy. The key is, place or lift your finger exactly when the pick hits the string. Or the other way around, strike the string only when the fretting finger is in the right spot. Also try to keep your fingers close to the fretboard when playing. Don't lift them too far away. Maybe except for your pinky, because anatomically this is often not really possible. This keeps your technique economical and clean, ensuring better tone and control. Alright, that's it for this video. Please let me know in the comments which tips helped you the most. Also, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. And then I'll see you in the next one.